Three global forces, one ultimate question: who dominates the world by 2030? Russia, NATO, or China? The battlefield isn't what you think. It's not all tanks and missiles, though there's plenty of that too. This war is fought with influence, alliances, cyber weapons, and raw economic power. And as we race toward 2030, the stakes couldn't be higher. Because whichever side rises won't just lead the world. They'll shape the rules for decades to come. It's easy to think global power is just about who has the biggest army. But today, it's about so much more. It's about who controls the energy, who dominates technology, and who pulls the strings behind international deals. It's about satellites in orbit, chips in your phone, votes in the UN, and money flowing through shadowy networks from Washington to Beijing to Moscow. Russia, NATO, and China are already locked in a silent war for control. But it's not silent for long. Every flashpoint, from Ukraine to Taiwan to the South China Sea, is a warning. The world is tilting, and someone's about to fall off. Russia might not have the largest economy or the biggest alliance, but what it does have is strategy. It plays long games, dark games, and sometimes it wins not by brute force, but by chaos. In Europe, Russia still holds much of the continent hostage through energy. Even after sanctions, it's found backdoor routes, selling oil to China and India while quietly influencing deals in Africa. Putin's tactics aren't just military, they're psychological. In Ukraine, the world expected a quick win or a fast retreat. Instead, it became a drawn-out war that drained Western stockpiles and attention. But Russia didn't stop there. Through the Wagner Group, its shadowy private army, it's moved into Africa, securing gold mines, installing friendly governments, and spreading anti-Western sentiment like wildfire. And then there's cyber. Russia doesn't need spies in trench coats. It has keyboards. From alleged election meddling to critical infrastructure hacks, it's shown it can strike without ever launching a missile. But what may be most underestimated? Its alignment with BRICS, an emerging counterforce to Western institutions. Russia, China, Brazil, India, and others are building parallel economies, alternative banking systems, and military ties that bypass NATO entirely. In chess, the most dangerous move is the one you never saw coming. And Russia has always been a master of the invisible game. But even Putin knows the world's not a one-board game anymore. NATO isn't a country. It's a promise, a pact, a trigger. Over 30 nations standing together, bound by Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all. It sounds unstoppable. And on paper, it is. With the combined firepower of the United States, the UK, France, Germany, Turkey, and more, NATO boasts the most powerful military alliance in human history. Massive budgets, unrivaled air and naval dominance, and decades of war-tested coordination. But power isn't just about size. It's about unity. And that's where NATO shows cracks. Behind the scenes, tension is simmering. Eastern European countries like Poland and the Baltics are screaming for more defense against Russia. But Western members, especially France and Germany, are more cautious, more hesitant, and more inward-focused. The US foots most of the bill, and that's become a problem. In recent years, American leaders have questioned why the richest European nations still aren't meeting their defense spending targets. And then there's Turkey, a NATO member playing both sides, buying Russian missile systems, hosting NATO bases. Unpredictable but too strategic to cut loose. The alliance works, for now, but there's a growing fear. When the next real crisis hits, will all 30-plus members truly stand together? NATO moves slower than its rivals. Every major decision has to pass through a tangled web of diplomats, defense ministers, and red tape. That's fine in peacetime, but in wartime, it could be deadly. Still, no one should underestimate NATO's sheer strength. The intelligence sharing, the joint war games, the unified command structure that can launch thousands of troops at a moment's notice. And if it ever fully aligns, no one, not even China, can outmatch its combined reach. But that's a big if. And while NATO debates, China builds. While Russia disrupts and NATO debates, China builds, quietly, relentlessly, with one goal: global dominance without direct confrontation. You won't see China starting wars, not yet, but look closer, and you'll realize they're winning battles no one else even saw coming. They've militarized artificial islands in the South China Sea, 7 new bases complete with runways, missile systems, radar, And they did it while most of the world was still arguing over maps. They control over 90% of rare earth minerals used in electronics, weapons, and renewable energy. That means if China cuts exports, the rest of the world grinds to a halt. They've built the Belt and Road Initiative, a global trade web stretching across over 140 countries. On the surface, infrastructure. Underneath, influence. Ports, highways, railroads, and strings attached to every deal. And it doesn't stop there. China's winning the AI race. From facial recognition software to deepfake technology to quantum surveillance systems, they're investing in tools the rest of the world is just now starting to understand. They don't just make TikTok. They dominate drone manufacturing, chip production, and electric vehicle components. And behind it all, a surveillance state unlike anything we've seen before. Xi Jinping's grip on power is absolute. He's purged rivals, reshaped the Communist Party, and removed term limits, ensuring he stays in control through 2030 and beyond. China's strategy isn't about sudden conquest, it's about inevitability. They've infiltrated African and Latin American markets with loans, built cyber alliances across Asia, and begun shaping global norms in tech, trade, and even speech. By the time other powers react, China has already moved 2 steps ahead. But don't mistake silence for weakness. China is rapidly expanding its navy, preparing for possible conflict in the Taiwan Strait, and testing hypersonic missiles that can dodge traditional defense systems. Their goal? To become the dominant global superpower without ever needing to pull the trigger. But what happens when their silent war meets Russia's chaos and NATO's might? The world isn't just drifting toward conflict, it's sprinting. And the map is lighting up with potential flashpoints, where one wrong move could spark a chain reaction. Let's start with the big one, Taiwan. China considers it a breakaway province. The US and its allies? A democracy worth defending. Xi Jinping has ordered the Chinese military to be ready to invade by 2027. In response, the US has ramped up military aid, stationed more forces nearby, and conducted joint drills with allies like Japan and the Philippines. One misstep in the Taiwan Strait, one fighter jet too close, one misread signal, and it could ignite a war between nuclear powers. Then there's the South China Sea, a powder keg of territorial disputes. China has built airstrips, stationed warships, and claimed vast swaths of ocean. The US Navy, still patrolling the area in freedom of navigation missions, and neighboring countries, Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, are caught in the middle. Now shift to Eastern Europe. The war in Ukraine is far from over. Russia's invasion didn't go as planned, but it's far from defeated. Ukraine has held strong with NATO's support, but the front line is frozen. Stalemate? Maybe, but peace? Not even close. Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, they're building defenses like war is inevitable. And Russia? They're moving tactical nukes into Belarus. Just one miscalculation, one skirmish, and NATO could be pulled into a full-blown war on its eastern flank. And don't overlook Africa. You might not expect it, but it's a quiet battleground for influence. Russia is sending mercenaries and weapons. China is investing billions in roads, ports, and data infrastructure. The US and Europe? Struggling to keep up. It's a three-way race for control of the next resource-rich frontier. And there's a new battlefield that can't be seen at all: cyberspace. Critical infrastructure, hospitals, banks, satellites can now be attacked without a single bullet. China and Russia have been testing these waters, from data leaks to ransomware strikes. The next Article 5 trigger for NATO? It might come from a keyboard, not a missile. These are the tension points. And they're not going away. They're multiplying. Each one is a fuse. And someone, somewhere, is bound to light it. If you freeze the timeline right now and just let the trends play out, who's going to be sitting at the top by 2030? Let's break it down. NATO has the edge in raw firepower. Over 3 million active personnel, tens of thousands of aircraft and tanks, and a nuclear triad spread across the US, France, and the UK. But it's not just about numbers, it's about coordination. NATO's greatest strength is also its greatest weakness: alliances. One disagreement, one nation that refuses to act, that entire machine grinds to a halt. China, on the other hand, is scaling at a terrifying pace. It now has the largest navy in the world by number of vessels, and it's pouring billions into next-gen warfare, hypersonic missiles, AI drone swarms, space-based weapons, and quantum encryption. By 2030, it may not outgun NATO, but it might out-tech them. Russia? It plays a different game. It uses unconventional warfare, cyber strikes, information ops, and proxy militias. Their official military might be smaller, but their unpredictability makes them dangerous. And if their ties with China deepen, that changes the balance. So who wins by 2030? That depends on the metric. Military unity, NATO; economic growth, China; tech and espionage, China and Russia; strategic chaos, Russia. But here's the real twist. This isn't a one-winner game. 2030 won't crown a single superpower. It'll reveal a three-front Cold War, where alliances, tech, and influence matter more than tanks and troops. The world might not break into war zones. It might break into zones of control, digital, economic, and ideological. And if that happens, the real question isn't who dominates the world, it's who dominates your world. So now you know the stakes. Russia, the ruthless strategist; NATO, the aging but powerful alliance; China, the silent superpower playing the long game. Each has a path to dominance by 2030, but none of them win without a cost. And here's the truth. Global power isn't just about missiles or money anymore. It's about who shapes minds, who controls data, who sets the narrative, before the world even realizes it's changed. This isn't the Cold War 2.0, it's something colder, smarter, more dangerous. And the scariest part, by the time most people notice the shift, it'll already be done.